What if your greatest weakness, that thing you wish you could change about yourself, could actually become the source of your greatest strength? Well, today we're diving into one of the most powerful stories of personal transformation ever told. It's all about a patriarch's wrestle with his past, his family, and, believe it or not, with God himself. And just think about that for a second. Have you ever felt like you're wrestling with your own past? With the person you used to be, or maybe some choices you made? If that feeling hits home for you at all, then this story is going to feel very, very familiar.
All right, so our story is all about a man named Jacob. And his name, well, it tells you pretty much everything you need to know about where he starts. It literally means the supplanter or the deceiver. Some even translate it as the heel grabber. So from the moment he was born, he was defined by this idea of grasping, of scheming, and of taking what wasn't really his.
And that identity? It leads us straight into the first part of his journey, the trickster's gambit. This is a moment of pure deception that would completely set the course for the next 20 years of his life. So the stage is set with this classic family rivalry. On one side, you've got Esau. He's the rugged, outdoorsy firstborn son, a total dad's boy. And on the other side, there's Jacob, the quiet, stay-at-home twin who was definitely his mother's favorite. This parental favoritism, as you can imagine, created the perfect storm for all kinds of jealousy and conflict. The moment of truth comes when their father, Isaac, is old and can barely see. He calls for Esau, his firstborn, to give him the patriarchal blessing. And this wasn't just some nice words, this was a powerful, binding, spiritual inheritance. But Jacob, with a big nudge from his mom, jumps on the opportunity. He covers his arms in goat skins to feel hairy like his brother, he makes a meal, and he lies right to his father's face and steals the blessing that was never ever meant for him. And the timing of this is just, wow, it's heart-stopping. The very second Jacob gets that blessing and walks out, Esau walks in from the hunt. He's ready to receive the exact thing that has just been stolen from him. And the discovery, the feeling of betrayal, the heartbreak, it's all immediate and just absolutely devastating. Esau is filled with a murderous rage, and rightly so. So Jacob, the great deceiver, he got what he wanted, but the cost was everything. He is forced to literally run for his life, leaving his family, his home, everything behind to start a long, lonely journey into exile. This act of betrayal leads us right into the next chapter of his life, which you could call an exile's education. Because for the very first time, Jacob is about to find out what it feels like to be on the receiving end of a lie. The tables are about to turn. And what happens next is a kind of poetic justice, isn't it? Jacob runs off to his uncle, Laban, who, it turns out, is an even bigger schemer than he is. Jacob works for 7 years for Rachel, the woman he loves, only to get tricked on his wedding night into marrying her older sister, Leah. So he has to work another 7 years to finally marry Rachel. For 2 decades, his own trickery is just mirrored right back at him over and over again. But here's the wild part. This period of hardship was also a time of unbelievable blessing and growth. In the middle of all the family drama and deception, Jacob becomes the father of 12 sons. And these aren't just any sons. They're destined to become the patriarchs of the 12 tribes of Israel. The very foundation of a nation is being built while he's in exile. So, after 20 long years, Jacob finally leaves his scheming uncle to go home. And this is what leads us to the climax of the entire story, a divine wrestle, a midnight confrontation where everything, his past, his future, it all comes to a head. You have to picture this scene. It's incredibly tense. Jacob has sent his entire family, all his possessions, everything he owns on ahead of him. He's about to face Esau, and he's just heard Esau is coming to meet him with 400 men. So he is completely alone, in the dark, absolutely terrified that the bill for his deception has finally come due. And in this moment of total vulnerability, this mysterious man just appears and starts wrestling with him. They fight all night long. The man, who Jacob realizes is God or an angel, touches Jacob's hip and injures him permanently. But even though he's physically broken, Jacob just hangs on. He refuses to let go until he gets a blessing. And this brings us to the great transformation. Because what happens next isn't just a simple blessing, it's a complete rewriting of who he is. He gets a new name, and with it, he becomes a completely new man. The divine being says to him, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome." Just like that, his entire identity is flipped. He's no longer Jacob the deceiver. He is now Israel, the one who overcame not with his old tricks, but by desperately clinging on in his weakest moment. So what does this new name, Israel, actually mean? Well, it can be translated as he struggles with God, or even God prevails. It marks a brand new identity. Jacob is no longer the guy who grabs and takes. He's the man who has wrestled with God and has been fundamentally changed because of it. So, how does this huge interchange actually play out in the real world? Well, it leads directly to the final act of this amazing story, a journey of reconciliation. The very next morning, Jacob, now Israel, goes to meet Esau. But he doesn't approach him like a schemer or a rival trying to get the upper hand. He comes as a broken man, literally limping from his encounter with God, and he bows down in humility before the very brother he wronged all those years ago. And that confrontation he had been dreading for 20 years, it just melts away into an embrace. Esau runs to him, throws his arms around him, and they both just weep. The feud is over. A lifetime of fighting ends in a moment of pure grace and forgiveness. And that peace was only possible because Jacob first found peace in his struggle with God. What an incredible story, right? It's just packed with timeless lessons. So let's ask the question, what can we learn from the man who wrestled with God and walked away with a limp and a new name? Well, I think there are a few huge takeaways. First, our deepest struggles can actually be the very things that lead to our greatest transformations. Second, a real encounter with the divine doesn't just improve you, it renames you. It changes your very identity. Third, and this is a big one, sometimes we have to be defeated to have our own strength fail us to find a true spiritual victory. And finally, making peace with other people, it almost always starts with the healing that has to happen inside of us first. And that really brings the question right back to us, doesn't it? If you look at your own life, where are you being invited to stop scheming, stop running, and instead just wrestle? To hang on through whatever that struggle is, believing that a new beginning is waiting on the other side. So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with this thought. Jacob walked away from his transformation with a limp, a physical wound that would forever remind him of his struggle. So what if your greatest wound, the very thing that marks your own brokenness, is actually the source from which a new name, a new identity is just waiting to be born?